This is Global Warming, a Rope of Sand presented by Brandon Rivera. Global warming is an ever-prevalent threat that has devastating consequences throughout the world. It has been observed devastating colder climates and rendering coastal and equatorial climates uninhabitable. In this presentation, I will be discussing what it is, what we know about it, the controversies around it, and what to expect in years to come, with generalized points or specific data being on the slides. For those unfamiliar, global warming refers to the gradual heating of the Earth's surface. This trend has been observed for centuries and is getting exponentially worse. This has had a devastating effect on primarily icy or oceanic lands, and given these landmasses are largely composed of ice, the local fauna of these environments have suffered a great deal from having their homes melt away and having competition for resources increase drastically. In addition to environmental concerns, the ice caps provide a unique database of climate history, varying from atmospheric composition to bacteria of ancient times, that would be rendered completely unusable by the scientific community once it melts. This also affects people in more temperate areas, specifically the coastal cities, which would be severely damaged by the rising sea levels that are sure to follow when colder lands melt. An example of these threats would be the ice mass in Antarctica that holds enough water to raise the sea level by 58 meters or 190 feet, rendering a large part of both the east and west coast of America underwater. There is plenty that is understood about this phenomenon, and it is apparent that human infrastructure and industrialization has greatly contributed to and accelerated the rate at which this planet is heating up. Human contribution largely comes in the form of increasing the amount of CO2 in the air, primarily as exhaust from vehicles and through pollution from factories. Lumbering efforts have worsened the effects because, with less trees able to remove CO2 from the air, then the more it stays and accumulates in our atmosphere. Even with lower emission scenarios, the planet is likely to lose ice at a rate of 8,800 billion tons per century starting in 2100. With higher emissions, it could be at a rate of 35,900 billion tons. What isn't immediately clear, though, is how lower depths of the ocean are being affected, if at all, by human activity. There does seem to be heated temperatures at low points in the ocean, but not near any volcanic activity. Scientists are still unsure what exactly is causing this because warmer water tends to start or drift toward the surface, and creating even a slight change in temperature at the recorded depths of 4,400 meters or 14,895 feet would require a substantial amount of energy. The problem here lies with our access to these depths. Changes in atmosphere and land temperatures are easily measured and recorded, while changes to the depths require loads of specialized equipment and researchers in order to retrieve and use the data. The controversies that surround global warming and climate change tend to be political ones, largely because no one can seem to agree on how to address the problem. Despite the global devastation the planet's current course of action entails, politicians around the world don't want to be stuck with the bill. Donald Trump pulling out of the Paris Agreement is a prime example. Despite there being no definitive plan for the UN as a collective, each of the members that are a part of the Paris Agreement have taken an oath to reduce carbon emissions with a measured amount and a deadline. Trump stated that he didn't like how things were going to be handled, and so he moved environmental concerns to be a domestic problem, and it has since been scarcely mentioned. There also seems to be a problem with certain politicians denying that global warming exists, or even being ignorant on what global warming actually is, and a problem where other politicians use global warming to institute unrelated policies for their own gain. On both sides of the political spectrum, it seems the reality of global warming is sidelined by theatrics. Predictions of how this will play out in the next few decades are generally grim. Things will likely get worse before they get better, but effective actions need to be taken soon if the planet is going to make a full recovery. Here you will see the references that were used to provide the data you saw in the slides.